What is going on, everyone? It is time to do another requested video. Back in April, we did a video about the best places to be homeless, because sometimes, like Minnesota, sucks to be homeless because you might freeze to death. So there's nice places to be homeless if that's the cards you were dealt. Nobody wants to be homeless. In the last couple weeks, I have noticed that it's getting more and more attention. The federal government is talking about getting involved in California and New York's homeless problem. There's also talk of working on the extreme poverty in the southern states as well, which is all really good news. The reality of homelessness is that it can happen to anyone. A lot of people are just 1 or 2 paychecks away from living in their car or actually on the streets. I know a guy who got laid off from his good paying job and lived in his car and showered at his lower paying job for about 4 months until he got back to his old job and made more money. It can happen. Those things happen. It's not just money problems. I went to school with a girl who had a breakdown while going to UCLA, and she just walked away from her apartment. She lived on the streets of Santa Monica for almost a year before her family found her. And she's from an upper middle class family. I think her dad was a lawyer. It's not just your stereotypical old man that drinks and has bad luck betting on the ponies. It can happen to anyone. As I said, it could happen to anyone. Luckily for both these people, life turned around with some help. In the description box below, I have links to some great organizations. If you wanted to help out, they're there for you. So, what cities have the most homeless people in the United States? We're gonna find out right now in my top 10 American cities with the most homeless. Number 10, Las Vegas, Nevada. If you didn't know Las Vegas would be on this list, you've probably never been to Las Vegas. And before you feel the need to point out the difference between Las Vegas and Paradise, Nevada, stop typing. We are talking about metro areas in this video. Vegas is the city of entertainment, and apparently a ton of people end up homeless here. There are about 2.2 million residents in the Las Vegas metro area and about 6,000 homeless residents. The unemployment here is one of the main factors in the homeless problem. It's at 7% currently, while those who do work are barely scraping by with an income that's way lower than the national average at $29,000 a year. Gambling, giant margaritas, and other addictions play a big part of putting people on the street in Las Vegas. I wouldn't want to be homeless here. It's just sweltering heat most of the year, and I mean, that's never comfortable, even when you have a place to go home and take a shower. And then you got to factor in permanent sunburn because you probably can't afford sunblock. No thank you. The good news is they have a lot of programs for the homeless here. They kind of have to. Number 9, Boston, Massachusetts. Boston is the 5th most populated city on the East Coast with 667,000 residents. The entire metro area has about 4.6 million. More than 6,200 residents here have been struck by homelessness. While the unemployment rate is kind of low at 2.7, the jobs they have there are not quality jobs, for the area at least. The cost of living here is 81% higher than the average, with the housing cost spiking about 215% higher than the national average. In other words, people can't afford an apartment in Boston working at a gas station. If you make under $30,000 a year while living in Boston, chances are you have 5 roommates and you're very close to living on the streets. I read about one guy who became homeless because A, he was broke, and he figured it was harder for the bail bonds company that was trying to track him down. It was harder for them to find him if he had, didn't have an address. That might be kind of smart though, think about it. It's hard to track someone down when they have a situation where their home address is kind of fluid. Number 8, Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix may be one of the most dangerous places to be homeless in terms of natural conditions. The city has about 1.6 million residents, the metro area has about 5 million, and about 6,400 residents are homeless. About 25% of them are unsheltered and living on the streets. Unsheltered means they are basically urban campers. They are living under the stars most nights, if not all nights. Not in a car or some homeless shelter the local government has set up. They're outside. That means they're exposed to the extreme Arizona heat, which can be very dangerous. I've seen people get heat stroke. It ain't cool. Like day 2 of Ranger School in the Army, some dude collapsed on a run and he started screaming like Sam Kinison. If you don't know who Sam Kinison is, anyway, this dude was like, "Oh my God, what is happening to me? What is happening to me?" He was having heat stroke, and I was thinking the same thing. Oh my God, what is happening to this dude? Anyway, he got a free helicopter ride and we kept running. Extreme heat with no shelter can be really bad for human beings. It's just how it is. Thankfully, the Phoenix Homeless Project is a program that targets the homeless to get them back on their feet and get them off the streets and get them what they need. It's a good thing. Number 7. Washington, D.C. The country's capital is not someplace you'd expect there to be many homeless. Unfortunately, it is, however. And no, they're not all politicians that lost their last election. That would be kind of good, though. They could see how the other half lives and maybe make some changes. The homeless population has risen to nearly 7,000 over the last couple years. The good news is it went down a little the last 2 years, which is good. Let's hope that trend continues and we can all learn from it. So why did it get to 7,000 in the nation's capital? In part, it was the unemployment rate of Washington, D.C. It had spiked to 5.6. This is during good times. This isn't during the recession. This forced about 16% of the residents to live in extreme poverty, and home foreclosures raised to 2.13%. That's kind of a lot. Across the country, unemployment is down, which is great. The fact of the matter is, most of those jobs are really low-paying jobs, which sometimes leads to working homeless people. The homeless people that have jobs. It's not good. And that's what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now. Number 6. San Jose. Just down the 101 from San Francisco, you have San Jose, or as an Army friend of mine from Minnesota called it, San Hoji. I don't know why. San Jose is the third largest city in California with just under 1 million residents. The bad news is, in San Jose City, just the city by itself, there's over 6,000 residents that are homeless, either in shelters or on the streets. The San Jose metro area has about 10,000 homeless residents. The city offers a few emergency shelters, but they got a ton more resources, such as Life Moves, that helps homeless individuals and families in many ways, like finding shelters, getting warm home-cooked meals, things like that. I'll leave a link for them below. Number 5. San Diego, California. Being homeless is no joke, but at least in San Diego, you can do it and be warm. Among San Diego's 1.4 million residents, about 8,500 of them are homeless. The entire metro area is working with about 11,000. The unemployment rate here is less than California's average at 3.6%, and that's as of July of 2019. So it isn't much of a factor as other places. They have a lot of homeless for a place that has jobs. That kind of tells us that if the unemployment did spike, it could get much, much worse in San Diego. Now, understand unemployment is only one of the many reasons someone becomes homeless. Matter of fact, two of the major ones are psychological problem and drug addiction, which in some cases it's the same thing. But those are the two things that get named the most. San Diego wrestles with other issues being so close to the border that contribute to their homeless situation. Then of course you have the weather. Like I said in my last video, if you gotta be homeless, you should do it where there's good weather, if you can. I think 2 or 3 of those YouTubers that live in their van are doing their videos in San Diego. They live in San Diego. It's these van life videos. And what's strange is most of them are young ladies. It's really weird that that's what it's come to, but that's a situation we have to live with. It's usually, a lot of times with people like that, it's student loan debt. Number 4, San Francisco, California. Yes, San Francisco is not the worst like I'm sure many of you were expecting. San Francisco is bad, but it's not that third world country bad some in the political arena want you to believe. I was there like 4 months ago. I found no human waste or needles on the streets. Let it go. San Francisco is known for being way too expensive. The city has a population of 885,000 residents, and about 9,000 of them are homeless. In this case, we are just talking about the city, not the metro area. The overall cost of living here is 204% higher than the national average, with housing costs about 611% higher than the national average. That's disgusting. The average income here is about $96,000 a year. However, anything under $100,000 in San Francisco is considered low income. How bad does that suck? You have an income that 45% of the country dreams about, and you could barely make it work in San Francisco. You don't need to be homeless in San Francisco. You just need to leave San Francisco. If you're not making the $150,000 a year, there's no need to try and make it work anymore. Pack it up, go someplace else. Go live in the desert. San Francisco isn't worth it. Number 3, Seattle, Washington. Seattle is home to some pretty big companies like Amazon and Starbucks. However, if you're not fortunate enough to work for one of those companies, it may be hard to find a good job that pays well in this area. Seattle is a very expensive place, with the cost of living being about 104% higher than the national average, and the housing index alone being about 307% higher than the national average. It's no surprise that Seattle has the third most homeless residents at 12,000. That's a lot of homeless people. The sad fact is, it'll probably climb even higher next year. Number 2, Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles County, or Los Angeles metro area, has about 10 million residents, with about 50,000 of those being homeless. You heard me right, 50,000 people in Los Angeles are homeless. Besides the places like Skid Row, which should have been fixed 20 or 30 years ago, you have these streets in industrial areas where people living in cars, vans, and motorhomes make these little villages at night. It's like Winnebagoville or something. Los Angeles is the largest city on the West Coast, right next to San Diego. Being the largest city in a prime area, things can get crowded and expensive. In a relatively cheaper area and somewhat safer, for Los Angeles safer, like Mar Vista, a 500 square foot studio apartment is anywhere from $1,900 to $2,500 a month. 500 square feet studio apartment, that much. And it could get higher, but that's kind of the average. If you must live in Los Angeles, try a nearby suburb to save some money. I saw an interview where some of these mobile homeless people were living, and the guy went around and talked to some of them. One guy said he needs to be close to his workman's comp lawyer and a good payday loan place just to survive. That's just a bad situation when that's what you're waiting for. And number 1. New York City, New York. New York City is the most populated city in the country with 8.35 million residents. That is just the city, not the county or metro area or anything like that. 8.35 million residents. Among these residents, 78,000 of them are homeless. You heard me right, 78,000. It's a tough place in New York City, especially if you're going through rough times. The cost of living here is extremely high, with housing costs being about 254% higher than the rest of the country. So many people romanticize New York and Los Angeles for that matter, and they often forget about the tragic situations like the number of people living on the streets and hungry. Pretty sad. New York City has a ton of programs and shelters to help with this situation, but it isn't enough. The people that work for these programs and shelters are overworked and underappreciated. Hopefully someday they can get a handle on this and, get it down somewhat from like 78,000. That's still incredible. Anyway, New York City does have the highest population of the homeless in the country. I know this was kind of a bummer of a subject. I hope you learned something. Like I said, I'll leave some links below if you'd like to help out one of the many organizations that help the homeless. Everybody have a great day, be nice to each other, and remember, we're kind of all in this together.